Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me for leveraging rentals to boost your sales leads. So, I put together this webinar. It's mainly going to give you an in-depth understanding of RentSpree, but what I think a lot of agents need to understand too is, working with rentals is not one of those things where, like a lot of agents try to avoid rentals, which I totally understand. Property management is what they equate rentals to. But I will say that rentals and working with renters and landlords are a great way to build credibility, to build relationships, and also really to build your sales funnel down the line. That's how a robust real estate career is going to be sustained into the future. So my goal here today is to give you a full understanding of our RentSpree platform, and you can integrate that into your workflow to make things more streamlined and efficient for you. So, a little introduction. My name is Kim Mingo. I am a first voice lead here at RentSpree. And my background, I actually have been in real estate for over 20 years. I've been with RentSpree for about 4 years. But prior to coming on board with RentSpree, I was a technology trainer at an MLS here in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore metro area, in the Mid-Atlantic area, Bright MLS. So I had many, many, many years of working with agents in training them on the various tools and technology that the MLS provided, which, included Matrix, included Showing Time, included RentSpree as well in the later part of my career there. So I'm very well versed with working with agents. I'm also a licensed agent in the state of Virginia, although I am on a referral status. So I kind of hit it from both sides here of technology. So we're going to dive right in. And if you have any questions, just drop it into that Q&A, and I will make sure I get all of your questions answered before I leave you today for those who are joining me live. And for those of you who are watching this recording, I will drop my email at the end. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop me a line as well. All right, since this is going to be a full product demonstration, I'd love you all to follow along if you can. So if you haven't yet set up your complimentary RentSpree account, I've put a link on this slide. I've also dropped in a QR code. Feel free to scan that with your phone and get activated. And then I'm just going to pop into the chat a link as well. So if you can easily click on that link, that might be a little easier for some of you. And if you already have a RentSpree account, you can log in and follow along. All right, so the nice thing about RentSpree is that we handle the tenant screening for you. So you don't have to find the right place to go and try to pull people's credit reports and all of that. We manage tenant screening, we manage the application, and we provide tenant screening background checks throughout the 50 states. So if you're licensed beyond New York, you can use RentSpree. Maybe some of you have your own properties that you might be looking to use RentSpree on. Feel free to do so. We are the highest rated tenant screening solution, and we work with millions of agents across the nation with providing the tenant screening tool. So what we do at RentSpree is we aim to simplify the rental process for real estate agents. As I mentioned in the beginning, a lot of real estate agents are not property managers, which is totally fine. I think working with rentals is just part of the business, right? So your business is helping people find safe, affordable housing. And for many people out there, their real estate journey right now is going to be a rental. So, with home prices being still unaffordable for many people, with interest rates being still relatively high for most people, and with many people working remotely, there are going to be lots of transplants moving around the nation. And so rentals make sense for a lot of folks. So when you're working with a rental transaction, we simplify the process for you because we understand you would love to close this rental and move on to the next transaction, whether that be another rental transaction or then focusing on your buyers and sellers. That's what we're here to do. So beyond the tenant screening, we do offer a very nice marketing section. There's several places throughout our platform where you can market your listing online. And, a lot of agents, especially if they're newer, they really don't think a lot about the various places where they can promote their listing beyond the MLS. So what we do on our marketing end is we supplement the syndication that your most MLSs will provide. So syndication is how your listing is going to get out throughout the internet to different websites and such. And, a lot of times MLSs will syndicate to, all the big sites, right? The Zillows, the Realtor.com, Redfin, Zumper, all of those big sites. But when it comes to rental listings, MLSs might not be aware of all of the different rental ILSs out there, the listing sites. And so we come in and we supplement with those additional rental listing sites for you. And this is all just part of the RentSpree package, right? The nice thing about RentSpree is it's completely complimentary. There's no cost for you to use our platform. So how do we make our money? We actually not bill, but we collect payment from the renters when they go to apply. And when they apply, a part of that is going to be the screening. Okay. So I'm going to walk you all through all of that. We also offer rent payment collection or just general payment collection. So if you yourself own your own investment properties, you can choose to collect rent through RentSpree. If you wish, you can collect deposits, security deposits, one-time fees, whatever else you might want. Okay. If you're working with a lot of landlords, this tool is also available for landlords so they can set up payment collection as well from their tenants. All right, a really nice part about RentSpree, other than it being complimentary for you all, is that it's fully integrated into your MLS workflow. So if you have a rental listing, obviously you're going to go in through your MLS and you're going to enter it in so that you can get it promoted throughout your area and beyond. So we're part of that workflow. And I have a little demo when we go into the live section to show you. So in your listing, there's going to be a RentSpree field. You're going to activate it by saying, yes, I would like to use RentSpree to handle my tenant screening. And that's it. You say yes, you submit your listing, and then once you submit your listing, we'll kind of automate the process following that. So after you submit your listing, you're going to receive an application link, which is step 2 here on my slide. So the application link will be unique to the property that you just listed in the MLS. It will also be available in the listing details as well. So if any agent is searching in the matrix system and they come across your listing, they will see that there is a way for their renter client to apply. Okay, that's the application link. We will also email and text that same link to you. And we will text it if we have your mobile number. Otherwise, you will see it in your email. So look for that email. It comes relatively quick. It's on the same day that you submit the listing, but usually 10 minutes or so after submission. And that is for your convenience. Hang on to that link. Some agents like to copy it into a notepad on your phone, and that way you have it handy so you don't have to dig for the email. But that's available for you to share in case someone contacts you directly to apply. Okay. Now, once the applicant applies, they are going to see a RentSpree. They're going to get on the RentSpree platform. They're going to put in their information through the application. It's an online application that we manage. And then for the screening, we're going to ask them for identifying information, right? So you all probably know what that means. As an applicant, in order for me to be screened, we need to know who they are. Now, we partner with a company called TransUnion. And I know that's a familiar name. TransUnion is, of course, one of the 3 big credit bureaus. And TransUnion will ask the applicant or through our platform for their social security number or their individual tax identification number. And once they supply that, it will run through the TransUnion database in order to get the background checks for you. Okay, so the screening package that you will receive will contain the completed application along with the TransUnion credit history and the criminal background. Since you're in New York, eviction related proceedings will not return to you because that's a state compliance thing that we have to abide by. If you're also licensed in New Jersey, then you will get the evictions information. Okay, so it just depends on where you're licensed and where this property that you're screening for is located. All right. So beyond our standard screening, we also offer additional screenings as well. So, let me go back to the fee. So everything I mentioned earlier, the application and the TransUnion credit history and the criminal background, all provided to you, no cost to you, but for the applicant, it's a $20 fee per adult applicant. All right. So anyone 18 and over is going to apply. You're going to get the background check on that person, and it's $20 per adult applicant. And they pay through the RentSpree platform, so you don't have to collect any payments from the applicant. Now, there is also an additional level of screening for an additional $10, which makes it a total of $30 that the applicant would pay. You would also receive an income verification report, and that will give you 2 years worth of bank deposits. This is provided by a partner of ours called Finicity, which is a MasterCard subsidiary company. They provide a secured platform where the applicant will be able to link their banking information, and then Finicity will compile a report and deliver it to you. Okay, so that's income verification. That's optional if you want to use that. That same income verification level also includes a reference check and then document collection. So document collection is where there's a secured platform provided to the applicant so they can upload documents for you. That would be like IDs, that would be bank statements, that would be, bank check stubs, tax returns, whatever else your landlord client needs to verify this information. Okay, so we provide the document collection portal just because some people might not want to link their banking information into the income verification portal. Totally valid. They might not remember their bank password, right? So it makes it a little difficult. So they can just upload documents instead. Okay. I'm pointing that out because some landlords do require additional information. You can provide that to them, but our standard screening is going to be integrated into the MLS, and I'll show you that when we get there. All right. If you are a property owner, if you work with property owners who want to use this, you can collect payments from the tenants, right? So this would be monthly rent payment. This would be any other one-time fees, pet deposits, security deposits, move-in fees, whatever may apply. It gets automatically deposited into the owner's bank account. So this is why, as an agent, if you're facilitating a rental, you might not want to complete this because you're not going to have their banking information. You can initiate it. So in our platform, I'll show you. You can say, "Hey, I'm an agent working with a landlord. I'd like, to send them an invitation to collect rent online." Obviously you want to have a conversation with your landlord client ahead of time to see if something that they want to do. This is very convenient for the property owner because they don't have to wait for a check to be mailed to them. They don't have to wait for those individual Zelle payments. Zelle only lets you send a certain amount daily, right? So it can be kind of a pain where the tenant has to break up the payments, especially if it's a higher dollar rental. Everything gets automatically deposited, usually within, I'd say, 1 to 3 banking days. Okay, so not counting holidays, not counting weekends. The landlord will put in their banking information, and then the deposits will go in electronically. There is a small processing fee. There's no cost for the one-time fees, but for the monthly rent collection, it's a $3 processing fee that the landlord will pay. So basically, if the rent is $1,000, the landlord will collect $997 once it gets deposited. Okay, totally optional, but we do offer it as a convenience to help landlords out. All right. For some of you watching this, you're probably thinking, oh, this is great, but I don't have any listings, right? I don't work with any landlords. I do work with renters. So this is the nice thing about our platform. If you're working with renters, I'm going to show you how you can manually go into RentSpree and create a link so that they can complete an application. And I would highly recommend that you have them complete an application um, even before you start taking them out to see properties because it gets them ready, right? Sometimes an application might take a person like 30 minutes to complete, and time is of the essence in some markets. So if you're in a very competitive market and you're working with renters, I would say try to get them to do things as much as possible up front, like filling out an application. When the applicant completes an application on RentSpree, they can create their own free RentSpree account to save that application. And then when they're ready to apply, the landlord or the listing agent will, send them another link from RentSpree that they can then move on to step two, which is the screening, and they don't have to do that application again. All right. Now, if you're working with renters, this slide here will just let you know that we offer a one-time fee that the renter can choose to opt into when they're applying to a property, especially when they're paying a screening. It's $15 one time where they will receive a completed background check report on themselves, right? They will have a completed screening packet. So if they had applied to one property and they did not get that property, they can share that completed packet with the second property owner or the third or the fourth, right? And there would be no additional cost other than that one-time $15 fee. Okay. So our basic screening is $20. If they choose the $15, they would make it $35. They would pay that once, and then they'll have a completed background check that they can share with any additional landlords within a 30-day window. So this is important for you to know in case you do work with a lot of renters. Just let them know that this is available. Totally optional though on their end. If they feel like it's not worth it, then that's up to them. But I have had renters who thought they would get that property because they thought they were highly qualified, but lo and behold, there were a lot of qualified applicants and they did not get that rental, right? And so they had to apply a second time. And so that would, in essence, here be a second $20 fee. All right, moving on, let's get directly into our product demo. If you're already logged into RentSpree, wonderful. If you haven't had a chance yet to log in, I'm going to give you a quick second to do so. You can scan my QR code here with your phone. You can also go to the chat. Let me drop it in one more time in case you logged in late. There's a link there in the chat as well, so you can click through and create your free RentSpree account. All right, let me hop over to my demo. All right, excuse me a second. My allergies are getting me. Okay, so if you are logged into your MLS portal. All right, this is your portal. I'm going to show you another path to logging into RentSpree. So you might already be logged into your MLS. I'm sure you guys start your day really early. First thing you do is log into the MLS and check the listings and do all of that, right? So if you're already in the MLS, this is, of course, your dashboard. We have a tile here, the RentSpree. You can just click through and then you'll be able to create your account there as well. If you have a listing and you're planning to put that listing in, or if you already have a listing, you can go back in and edit your rental listing. I'm going to show you real quick. So when you go into Matrix, you're going to go into add edit, and then you're going to add your listing as you normally would, or you can edit your existing listing. Let me find the rental. Okay, and by the way, RentSpree, obviously we do tenant screenings. It's only available on residential rentals. Okay, so when you're putting in the system, you won't see it in any other input forms except for the residential rental one. So you're going to put in your regular address and so forth and complete the rest of your listing as you normally would. But notice that when I had selected residential rental, there's a tab here for RentSpree. We get our own special tab because we didn't want you all to kind of miss out, right? So if you don't have another tenant screening platform, you can activate RentSpree. And all you need to do here is say, yes, I want to use RentSpree. Here's some more information. If you're curious about any screening restrictions or what have you, there's a link out to that article. And then, of course, here's the link if you want to get to the main subdomain for RentSpree. All right, so that's how you'll do it. And then once you've completed your listing, you'll hit submit. Now, if you are working with renters, when you go in and you do a search for rentals in the MLS system, there is a field. I'm just going to point it out to you. Whether or not you want to apply it in your search is up to you. But there is a filter here for RentSpree, for listings that have RentSpree links on there. So I'm just going to show you this one, how it looks like. So as you're reviewing rental listings, you may come across rental listings where down here, in additional information, you're going to see a quick way to apply. Okay. So if this is your listing and you had activated RentSpree and you submitted your listing, it's going to look like this. You're going to have a link where people can easily apply. So as an agent, if I'm working with a renter and I'm sharing this listing with them, my renter client has a quick path to applying. Okay. Or, as a listing agent, you can share this listing with people and say, here's more information on my listing, and I have a link included in there. Okay. It just makes it really easy. Now, what happens when the renter gets the link either from you or their agent? They're going to open up the link and they're going to be walked through the process on our platform, and we make it extremely user friendly. So this is the rental that we're going to get started, and they're going to just be taken into the process and walk through step by step. So when they fill out the application, we're going to have all of the fields and they're going to be asked all of the information. Now, the nice thing about having this application online is that, first of all, they're typing in information and they're selecting options. They cannot skip any required fields, so you're not going to get any incompleted applications. And since everything is printed, it's going to be really easy for you to read and you don't have to interpret handwriting and so forth, right? So you can have all of that in the application. And then, of course, when they're taken through the screening, that's going to be pulled from the TransUnion database. They're going to have to supply either their social security number or their individual tax identification number in order for TransUnion to have a history. If they don't have either of those numbers, unfortunately, we can't pull their history. We can only collect an application. All right. So just be aware of that. You can always collect additional documents if that's the case. They might have supplemental financial documents that will verify, their income, right? I've actually had a few years back, we had a renter here who was a professor at a nearby college, and he came from Korea. And obviously, he doesn't have data here in the US, but he provided information from Korea and he paid up front, so that was really nice. So there are ways of getting around that. Okay, so down here, as I mentioned earlier, if you're working with a renter, this is where the renter can say, yes, I would like to receive a copy of my screening reports in order to apply to multiple properties if I need to within a 30-day window. Okay, this is where they would say yes. If not, they would just say no, and then they'll move on. They'll pay $20. Okay, and they'll continue to payment. They can pay through our platform as soon as they submit payment, and I would say maybe 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes, right after they submit, you will receive an email in your inbox with the completed application and the background check. So it's very quick. We deliver it directly to you. In some cases where we might have to do a more extensive search in their background, there may be a delay in that component for, maybe up to 24 hours. But for the most part, like 85% of the time, you're going to get it within like a 5, maybe 10-minute window. Okay, so check your emails for that. Now, you'll also see it in your RentSpree dashboard the next time you log in. So in addition to getting that delivered in your email, if you go into your dashboard, you'll also see it either under the property itself, or if you go into screenings, they will flow in here. Okay, so I'll just show you real quick. It will look something like this. All right. And then when you click on it, you'll get, of course, everything here, the application, the background check, the credit history, and so forth. And then you can share the report with your landlord clients. Obviously, if you're the agent facilitating the listing, you're not going to make the decision on any of these applicants. You're going to want to share the report right away with your landlord client, and then they can review it and select whoever they want to extend the lease to. Okay, so that's going to be your sharing option there. Now, let me show you. There's also a sample document that we have on our online support center. On your RentSpree dashboard, the lower left-hand corner, there's going to be a help button. If you click on that, it's going to launch the online support center. And then this is where you can kind of explore everything about RentSpree. We have great videos, FAQs, instructions, everything detailed out on this online support center. So I did just pull up a completed sample document to show you for the application and of course the background checks and so forth. Um, if you're curious about what questions we ask, this is where I would direct you to go take a look, and you'll see every, question that we would ask the applicant. You can review that. You can also go in and you can review what a credit history would look like on our report. So it's going to look like this. And when we give you the credit history or the background checks, these reports will never print their social security number. Notice up here it says exact match, but we don't know what numbers they are, right? And that's really to protect you and, of course, to protect the renter. If you've ever been a victim of credit fraud, I unfortunately have. It takes forever to clear. So we certainly want to minimize your liability and, of course, protect the renters as well, and by not printing that. The other thing that does not print, just for your peace of mind, is the address for the property that they're applying for. And you can understand why, right? In the case where they have requested a reusable application, they might need to apply using the same packet to multiple properties. So the address that they're applying for never gets printed anywhere, even though you'll get their completed application with all of their information. This would be basically like an agnostic application. They can use it for multiple properties. Okay, so just to give you a sense of the credit history and what you're going to see. You're going to see a very detailed history outlining the opened and closed straight lines, collections, bankruptcies, credit inquiries as well. So regarding credit inquiries, our pull against their credit is a soft pull. So what that means is that it does not affect their credit score. As you all know, whenever you're working with a buyer and the buyer has a lender that they're working with, the first thing that the lender says is do not apply to any lines of credit, right? No cars, no furniture, nothing, no new credit card, because every time those banking institutions check your history, that's going to be a hard pull against your credit. And if you have so many hard pull in your credit inquiries, it would definitely negatively impact your credit score. So in this case, it's a soft pull. It does not impact their credit score. All right. So that's important to note, especially if you're working with renters and they have a concern about that. Now, when you're reviewing the trait lines, you're going to see when they opened it, when they closed it, when they paid it out, and so forth. You're also going to see their payment history. And this is great because it's a good indication of their, financial responsibility. When a person is responsible, right, financially. I don't know what that term is, but here in this case, they may have several lines of credit, but they're paying it on time. They've never been late, and they've had it for a while. So it's a good indication that they're a very responsible person here. So the landlord can kind of look at the details and make their own assessments from that. All right. The other thing regarding the credit history I want to point out is up here at the top, this score. So do not confuse this score with their FICO score. It is not the same as their FICO or their credit score. This is called a resident score. The resident score is a mechanism that TransUnion uses specifically in the case of tenant screening. It's going to give the landlord a good sense of where they are, right, on credit wise, but it factors them differently than a banking institution would look at, the credit score or the FICO score. All right. So this will vary from that number. It's not going to be a huge jump. It may vary, maybe like by 20 points, maybe 30 points, right? Depending. But it's going to be different. So if you have a renter who questions that, just let them know this is not your credit score. If they feel comfortable supplying their credit score, they can, but this will be a good sense of their scoring mechanism here. All right. And then for the criminal background, let me scroll a little bit to that section so you can have a good understanding of what it entails. When it comes to the background check, TransUnion will access the national databases along with the state records to supply this. Now, there are some states that do not supply this information. You can check the screening restrictions and limitations if you're curious about that. It's probably a good handful, maybe 7 or 8 states, and they kind of, vary from time to time based on, what data is available to TransUnion, but we do provide that for you in this article if you're curious. And then this will give you an idea of what it would look like. Okay, it does pull the records within the last 7 years. And of course, if you want to supplement it with other court records that you might have access to, that's totally up to you. But this does give you a pretty good sense of their history. All right, so feel free to check out our online support center at your leisure and poke around, watch other videos if you're curious. Now, let me hop right into my dashboard because I want to show you some other things that you might like to do. Okay, so when you're logged into your RentSpree dashboard, especially if you have any listings that you've entered in through your MLS, within about 15 minutes or so, you'll see that listing appear on your RentSpree dashboard. It's not going to be the full completed listing from your MLS. It's just going to have the address, all right? Because we don't get everything from your MLS. So the address will appear here. It's going to look very similar to my screen. Now keep in mind, I'm showing you my test database. So it's not real information. And we always test different functionality here. So you may not see everything the way that I'm showing you from my screen. All right, it's going to look very similar though. But there's going to be a properties tab on the left. If you click on it, this is where all of your properties will be. Now notice each one of these properties, you can click on them. So when you click into the property, you have all of these different things that you can access, okay? You'll have this market property. These two sections here talk about marketing. This is what I mentioned earlier. Marketing is extremely easy on our platform. And it's also, I would say, very essential for you, right? Because as an agent, you want to connect the landlord with a vetted tenant, but you want to also do it relatively quickly because the longer this property stays vacant, the more that landlord is losing money, right? And you can't really, you want to close your deal quickly so that, you might get a little commission check out of it, right? And move on to the next transaction and so forth. So go in here and promote your listing. It's super easy to do. I'm going to just walk you through, just kind of show you, and then I have a completed listing to show you as well. So when you go in here, it's 4 steps. Four steps that you're going to do. The first step is to add photos. You can add a minimum of 3 pictures, a maximum of 50 pictures. And the next step is to add any virtual tour links if you have one. The third step is to put in the basic information about the listing, when is it available, how much is it, that type of stuff. The fourth step is to confirm the details of the property. So the fourth step, we actually implement AI and we pull in the data for your property based on what's available online, public records, old listings, things like that. So we'll pull in the number of bedrooms and bathrooms and square footage and amenities and appliances and all of that. You can edit any of those if they are incorrect. All right. So I'm going to show you one that I've got completed here. And go in. I've already done this ahead of time, so I'm just going to hit the edit button. So this is what the information is going to look like once you've kind of completed it. If any of these are incorrect, you just simply click on that section and you'll notice it opens up this side panel that you can then select or deselect, right? You can add things, you can take things out, whatever makes sense for this property to make it correct. All right, so I'm going to do some of these, whatever makes sense, right? And then once you're done with that, you hit save. And then it's updated that section and you can move on and do the same for the next section. Description, for those of you who already have a listing on the MLS, I would say just copy the description that you've got from your MLS listing and paste it right in here. Makes it easy. If you want to write another one, you certainly can. But basically, you're replicating a listing because we don't have all of the details from your MLS on your listing. So you'll want to recreate it here. The reason why you want to do this is because we also help push this to those other websites, as I mentioned at the beginning, that your either your broker or your MLS might not already be syndicating to. These are rental specific listing sites. All right. So once you're done, you just hit publish. And publish will allow it to go live and then it'll be found online and so forth. All right. It will also include a link for people to apply, which makes it really nice. So let me close out and I'll move on to the next section to show you. Now, if you're getting incoming applications or screening packets, you can also go into the listing and then click on where it says applications, and then you'll see them coming in and you can click on it like I showed you earlier. Now, one thing I want to point out is if you're sharing your link with a lot of different people who were interested, you can also check on their progress, right? So whether or not they had opened the link, started the application, submitted, we actually provide you the status right here so you can kind of check in on them. All right. Moving on, I'm going to just touch up on the payments real quick because some of you might be interested in this. You can click into payments, the payments tab here under the listing, or on the left-hand side, there's a payment section here as well. When you go in here, you can go in and collect payments. Remember, I said you can do security deposits, any other fees, or the monthly rents. Once you click on that collect button, you're going to identify your role in this listing. So whether you're the property owner, you're receiving the payment, that will take you to the next step where you'll complete out the banking information. And of course, you'll put in your routing number, your bank account, all of that, right? If you're doing this where you're just the agent and you're not the owner, you can select the second option. Okay, and then it will invite the landlord in. I'm not going to walk you through the process because it's going to say who's this tenant. You're going to add them in, and then the next step is we'll invite your landlord, right? It just sends them an invitation. They don't have to do it, but hopefully this is a conversation that you've had with your landlord client. So if they don't have an efficient way of collecting rent, this might be an option for them. All right. Moving on, I do also want to point out additional marketing, which is in terms of marketing yourself. So some of you watching this, you're like, this is fantastic. I'm learning a lot, Kim, but I don't have a renter right now. I don't have a listing right now. Perfectly fine. Now, from my years of training agents, if you took the time to sit through a training, make sure you remember what you learned, right? And so the best way to remember is to get in the product and do something. So I always tell agents, when you create an account with me, if you don't yet have a listing, if you don't yet have a renter, go in and promote yourself. So under marketing on the left-hand side, we're going to go to professional profile, and you can build out your own branding page. And this is all included. There's no cost for you to do this. We obviously want you to be promoted, to get your brand out there. We make money off of the screening. So the more people that you're working with, renters and landlords, and the more you're able to screen through our platform, we're happy, right? And we want to help you get to that step. So you go through here, you're going to add your information. And then once you're done, you can share it through your social media platforms. And then you can also copy this link and add it to, any other websites that you might participate in that you might want to promote your profile. I'm just going to show you real quick how that's going to look like. It just looks like this, very clean, very professional. You can add your updated pictures, your banner, all the information about you. If you have any active rental listings that you're currently promoting and you've created the listing page for, they will show under this active listing section. So anyone can click through it, see the details of that listing, and of course, they can apply real quickly on that listing page as well. All right. So I highly encourage that you take a few minutes to do this. I think it'll be extremely beneficial for you. And then, of course, take another few minutes to poke around the site, go into the help, watch the videos, that type of stuff. All right. As I wrap up here, I just want to point out one other section, which is Oh, actually, you know what? Let me talk about renters real quick. So I did mention earlier that if you're an agent who work primarily with renters, it's a good idea to get them started with an application. So how do you do that if you don't have a property, right? So you can actually, in our platform, you can go directly to screening, and then we give you an option right here to screen tenant. So you're not going to start with properties because you're not going to have a property. You're going to click on screen tenant. Now, I will give you a caveat because we are a tenant screening platform, you have to have a reason for screening somebody. Now, I know I said it's just an application, but it's kind of part of the process. The reason is we're applying to a property. That's like the valid reason. However, with renters, what do? You don't have a property, right? To get through that process, and I can't tell you 100% because I'm on a test database here. So on my site, you're seeing something where it says add a property later. If it shows that on your end, just click that. You'll get through the process and then you can add an address later. Remember, I said the address never prints anywhere. It's just for organizing, right? If it doesn't let you do this, then just pop in your office address. Again, it doesn't print anywhere. We don't use it for anything. It just kind of organizes everything into one section. So I'm going to add a property later just to get through this process. I'm going to say I'm representing the applicant, the renter. And then when it takes me to this next step, hopefully it won't hang on me here. Sometimes the test database hangs at this stage. When it takes you to that next step, what I'm trying to get you to is where you can select, I just want them to do an application. All right. So let me backtrack here real quick. Come on now. Okay. Let me backtrack real quick. I'm going to go through this path. And I apologize. Sometimes these things do that. Right. I'm going to go into this path. So essentially, once you get into creating the application or whatever else you want for that person, this is what I was trying to show you. Okay, it's going to have a screen very similar to this. You can say, I want them to do the application. I don't need anything as far as screening goes, because if you're initially working with a renter, you don't want them to, have to pay something at this time, right? It might take them a while to identify a property. Now, I see your hand, Francis. If you can drop it into the Q&A, I promise you I'll answer it. But I want to point out something. If the property is an address in New York, you'll see that $20 fee reflected. If the property is an address in New Jersey or any other state, then you'll see our basic screening fee, which is the $39.99. Okay, that's our standard screen, unless you're in a state where it's a different fee. All right, so I'm just going to say I only want them to do the application. Notice down here, there's no cost for them to do the application. We do default it where applicant pays for anything moving forward. So I'm going to show you that path. And then from here, this link now, if you wish to share it, you can copy and paste it to share with them. Okay, so that's totally optional, but I wanted to take you down that path in case some of you guys just work with renters, you don't work with listings. This can be used for that as well. Now, when the renter receives the link, they're going to be walked through the process. They will be able to save it in their own RentSpree account so that the next step, if they're moving on to do a screening, they don't have to enter that stuff again. It just takes them through the third step, which is the screening. Okay. All right, I have spoken a lot. So I want to make sure we have enough time to do questions. So I'm going to wrap up here. If you didn't get a chance earlier, I'm just going to leave this up while I take some questions. Let me check in. Actually, let me do this. I'm going to just stop the recording so you'll get a nice clean recording.